Firstly, I'd like to apologize to the audiences for this major technical hazard that we came across. And Janvi, Urvika had given us an intro about her label. We would want Janvi to now discuss about her label, her USP, and how long she has been in the market, and about your
Okay,
background, Janvi.
so I studied my fashion designing from London College of Fashion and moved on to styling course in Paris.
Yeah.
And I did do a small little job in a retail market, which was a multi-designer store, just to get the hang of the retail. And in
Yeah.
2011, we started this label. We started
Okay.
with Western Fret, and then we moved on to doing Indian.
Okay.
And we are now doing bridal as well.
All right. And how long have you been in the market? You've been in since 2011, Janvi,
2011,
right?
so it's about 3 years.
Sure. Okay. So now, my first question is, given the challenges in the fashion industry in India, the fashion ecosystem, so to say, the way it is today, and entrepreneurship being a different ball game altogether. How are you able to? And this question is both for Urvika and Janvi. How are you guys able to club the challenges of entrepreneurship and the fashion business and make it through in the business in the market in this business? I mean, what does it take to be a fashion entrepreneur? If I was to put it simply.
Well, honestly, I remember seeing this interview by Sabyasachi Mukherjee, who today is probably one of the gods of Indian fashion, saying that,
Mm-hmm.
he was a businessman first and then a designer. And that's something that really resonated with me because at the end of it, you have to be creative, all right, but your product has to sell.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very fine balance between creativity and your product being saleable. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the definite challenges. And the second thing is, there's so many designers today that it's, you need to find your niche market and you need to have your signature so that people, standing anywhere can say, oh yeah, she's wearing, so and so. So I think that's definitely a challenge. And at the same time, I think it's also an advantage because now people are more abreast with fashion in India. They completely follow trends, global trends, and they really want to make that effort to dress up.
Yeah. Sure. Javi, what's your take?
Yeah, I totally agree on Marika. Being a fashion entrepreneur is not easy. You
Yeah.
really need to work on what the customer really wants, and your product has to sell at the end. If you're making something which is, haute couture, and you're just putting on the racks, it doesn't sell. It doesn't make sense. So you have to study the psyche of the customer, and then according to that, you need to, showcase your label. And it's a correlation between both because if you really don't know how to handle a business, you really can't show your creativity. You need to have the right marketing, you need to have the right finance. Everything is clubbed together in this.
Sure. So both of you are educated in fashion design from countries outside of India. I mean, from abroad, obviously. And fashion designing basically is essentially is a creative profession. So when it comes to clubbing it with business, how has your education helped you in this? I mean, is that business skill something that that you learn firsthand while on the ground, or is it like do you think that your education has equipped you with those skills as well?
I think education has nothing to do with what you do in a business. I think it's completely different. You get the experience when you start your own business, and you learn so much out of it. What we studied in college is completely different from what we are doing right now. The customer wants something else, and you're designing something else. So you have to kind of cater to all the segments of the market. So I feel it's in I've also studied in NIFT for a while. I just could not get the hang of how uh, people teach here because there's nothing on based on research. We don't know what is the technical possibilities to each garment. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I would
what
disagree with you a little bit on that because I feel like my education really, really prepared me for what a fashion industry is about. Because when we were in New York, we were taken to Fashion Week to work behind the scenes, and we had mandatory internships over there. And a lot of our projects were based in the industry. We had to go out into the industry and talk to professionals and, interact with them, observe them. Our projects were based on industry research. So I feel definitely 50% of my preparation was done while I was studying overseas. And then, of course, once you start, you definitely learn on the way. Like every day is something new to learn.
So, so the takeaway is that basically it's got to do with the fashion design school you guys respectively attended. And I'm just joking. It's about the education that is lent to you in your college. So, now moving on
I
to
would say that studies here in India and studies abroad is very different.
I agree
uh-huh.
with her completely.
Yeah, because what you are being taught there is, I think, at a very high level. Here, a lot of attention is given to individual students who are kind of close to the teachers, and that's
Yeah.
about it. There's no practical experience you gain, and if you're kind of good in studies, then you excel. Otherwise, there's nothing about
And
nothing
I
next
think
to it.
I think especially for a field like design, which is aesthetic based, like everybody has their own preferred aesthetics. So, it's a very subjective matter. But
Mhm.
if your professor doesn't like your aesthetic, doesn't mean that you're not good.
Mhm.
I think that's something which is like, very prevalent here, that it's really based on the professor's aesthetics. And I feel often people lose out on their own creativity and aesthetics because they're just trying to please the professor.
True.
Absolutely. But then, Urvika and Janvi, these courses, studying abroad, a course like fashion design is not everybody's cup of tea when it comes to the investment and the finances. And given the education and infrastructure in India in the fashion industry, I'm on the same page with you guys. But then, what do you think is the way forward? If we don't have a good education infrastructure in India in the fashion industry, I mean, where are our designers headed?
I think there are a lot of designers who are seniors to all of us who are doing so well who doesn't have any fashion degree with them, but still they survive. So it's not necessary that you have a degree and then only you can excel in this field. It's all about your creativity and how you deal with your business. If you have it in you, if you have the knack, and I think you can excel in every field.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
definitely, and especially something which is creative, it's really your inner calling, like something that's inborn in you. I mean, of course, yeah, definitely the infrastructure needs slight improvement, no doubt. But I think it's already on its way because, like so many colleges such as Pearl, etc., they have this tie-up, for 2 months where, they'll send their students overseas. And I think that experience itself is great. But definitely, like when you have those 4 years, it's different. But even those 2, 3 months, it really changes your perspective. It gives you a very global perspective. And I think that's where Indian fashion is headed today. It's no
Sure.
longer restricted to India. I mean, it's a very global perspective,
Hmm.
especially with e-commerce coming in. Like people in any part of the world can just go on the net and pick up something.
Absolutely. My next question was actually coming to that point only. I mean, given e-commerce wave in India, I mean, there are so many regional to national brands which are not so big, not so big in terms of their scale, but they are making it big on a particular e-commerce website. Now that vis-a-vis a designer, a qualified designer like you guys who has invested so much money in educating yourself in that particular stream, how do you see? I mean, what's trending in the fashion industry? That on the one hand we've got local suppliers who are making big bucks, and on the other hand we've got designers like you are showcasing at the Gurgaon Fashion Week and other fashion weeks probably in future. So I mean, how is this fashion evolution happening? What is your take on this kind of evolution that is happening in the industry as of today?
I think there's a lot of fast fashion and threat fashion which is up in the e-commerce. You
Yeah.
don't see couture pieces, lined up in the sites and they're selling. Basically, the customer wants to have that touch and feel, and then you want to buy the product. So it's not necessary that the stores are shutting down, and it's a bad market right now. But I think as a consumer also, I also kind of purchase a lot of things online because it's very convenient for all of us to just only click of a button and get at this doorstep. So But for high fashion, like what we're doing with the brand and the designer labels which we are dealing with, I think the consumer wants to come and see and then purchase. So it's not that I would not say that the store habit is ending.
I would agree with her.
What would the
I completely
yeah.
agree with her on that. But and one thing that really drives fashion in India is the bridal and festive season. I mean, whatever you may say that India's going global and everything, but the bridal and festive market is definitely always going to be booming. There's always a demand for Indian clothes. And of course, if you're going to pick up something heavy, you're not going to really buy it online. Though I've seen a few exceptions on this one website, which is by Pernia Qureshi. It's the Pernia's pop-up shop. Like I've seen people pick up loads and loads of designer clothes, and they have very friendly policies that like if it's damaged or it doesn't fit you, like there's a return policy. So I feel that is something which is definitely in favor of the consumers. But as far as the brick and mortar stores are concerned, there's still that mentality that okay, I want to touch it. But smaller cities like the second tier towns, etc., they don't have access to these multi-designer stores. So for them, e-commerce is definitely a boom.
Sure.
But
But
I
guys,
think
also,
multinational. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go on, Jhanvi, go
I
on.
think multi-designer stores like Kimaya or Azad, they are setting up these stores nationally everywhere, be it your two towns or be it the metro cities. I think now the amount of stores is increasing day by day as the e-commerce is increasing. I would also say that the approach of consumer is very different now because they don't want to spend. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to spend. They want something which is heavy, but it's cost effective. So it becomes very difficult for all of us to kind of cater to those kind of consumers and clients. And I think we all have to kind of understand that um, to kind of sell our product in the market, we have to be very effective in terms of the pricing. Whereas on the
Yeah,
online sites, you would not find the same quality or the same kind of finish or the same kind of pricing, but still it looks heavy. So people are more into something which looks heavy and doesn't, they don't care about the fabric or the finish.
I think that also comes from like a fact that there's a social media boom. Everybody wants to like put up pictures whenever they go out, and nobody wants to repeat their outfits. And at the same time, they may not want to spend a huge sum on every outfit. So yeah, definitely I agree with you, Janvi, where you're saying that things have to be cost effective, but it becomes really hard to have a
Yeah.
margin also, because at the end of the day, you're going to give a huge margin to a retail store or to an e-commerce website. They have their own cuts, so the margins left for the designer are very minimal. So that's where it gets very, very hard to cater to a certain market and then still keep it within a price point. And at the same time, you don't want to compromise on your quality. You want to still retain the quality you spelled out at the beginning of your brand.
I think that's what the consumer don't understand, that a designer label is there just to provide you with the quality and the intricacy of the work. And right now we are at a stage where consumers are really not bothered about these things. They are more concerned about the pricing, and they don't want to repeat their outfits. So that's why the e-commerce is booming. That's why we see a lot of sites selling more apparel than other stuff. Uh, there are a lot of people who kind of, share their views on these things, and there talks about where to buy, what to purchase, which designer you should go to, because the pricing is becoming very similar everywhere. So a consumer would definitely want to go to a higher brand than you know retail something from a fresher. That's what I feel.
I think
Okay.
also fashion in India is still very occasion driven. Like especially when you want to spend on a higher price point, I think it's still very occasion driven. I mean,
Absolutely, I believe so. But I have a diverse point of view from Janvi and Urvika coming in. Like it seems that Urvika is has a sense of profitability from the business, and Janvi has more emphasis on the design label and the branding of the product. I believe, just to create that. Yes, yes, this particular attire is a designer label. So, but then ultimately, to be in the business, you have to be profitable, Janvi. And so, if both of you were to choose volumes over, you know, maybe margins or profitability, because what would you choose? You know,
I
you're
think
getting a question.
I think I would choose a bit of both because at the
Okay.
end of the day, you don't want anyone coming back to you and complaining. You want whatever you sell, like the customer is happy with the product. Because
Mm-hmm.
after all, if they're not happy, they're not going to come back. And at the same time, you have to be a little careful about your margins. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, initially when you start off, yes, you've got to keep the margins very, very minimal because you have to establish your brand name. But then at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you can't just be going into loss either. So,
Absolutely.
you have to do your best to give the best quality, and the quality is spelled out right at the beginning.
Absolutely. What does Janvi think on that? Janvi, would you choose volumes if you were to choose make a choice tomorrow?
I think I would never choose volume because once you start doing in bulk, you kind of lose out your own creativity. You stick to the amount and not concentrate on the nitty-gritties of designing. And it's also important to have profits because if you don't have profits, you really can't retail and survive in this world. It's very tough because the rentals are high, the expenditures are so much. So everything has to be clubbed together in a form that you kind of profit yourself and not lose out on your own style.
Absolutely. So that takes me to my next question, which is when it comes to dovetailing fashion with retail, what are the challenges that you come across? I mean, the dynamics totally change of the business. Your priorities also change to some extent. The real estate costs are there. Then there are supply chain issues. Then there are forecasting issues. Then the supplies are very few in this country. So, I mean, what kind of a different challenge is that when it comes to dovetail fashion designing with the retailing for a fashion designer like you guys?
I think for starting, like the margins are very high. They keep a huge percentage of the price. And so, your margins become very low. And, you can't increase your price point because, of course, you want the product to sell. That's
Yeah.
definitely one. And I think
Mm-hmm.
second is that, you want to be in a certain kind of store because that's what your brand stands for. That's what your
Mm-hmm.
brand aesthetic is. And that's what your
Mm-hmm.
customer base is. I think those are 2 points. And I think the third point would be that, a lot of people like they would buy products, and sometimes the product gets damaged and it doesn't sell, or sometimes things fall out and the damaged product is returned back to you. And like these kind of things, it's a little upsetting for a designer.
Sure. Jami, what do you think?
I think I've experienced the same. I've been retailing at different stores in Delhi. I also have my flagship store in Take.
Yeah.
Uh, the only problem is that the retail market does not want to understand that you are selling at a certain price and you have to kind of have the same pricing for the retail market as well. So I think most retail markets have about 100% of profit margins these days. So it becomes really difficult as a designer to cut down your own profit. And you are nearly at a 20% of profit, and then you want to sell that product also, you want to market yourself. So it becomes very difficult for us to kind of get into the market if the retailers have such high profit margins. Uh, because the marketing for us is very difficult. We have to be stuck to a budget. We have to stick to a finance budget each year. So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes very difficult for us to kind of get into the market and retail ourselves.
Absolutely. So the major, the paradox it seems for the fashion design industry today is this. I mean, whether to choose fashion design, your creativity over your margins, and especially when the modern retail is started booming in India. So there are concepts like Kimaya, and then there are concepts like exclusive online apparel retailers, and then there are leading designers who are tying up with these e-commerce retailers. So where do you see? I mean, what's the trend like? I mean, I just read that Rohit Bal is tied up with Jupong to create an in-house label for these guys. So, I mean, what kind of trend is that? Since you guys are just fresh in the industry and you have a brighter future, I mean, very bright future, of course, waiting for you. So, what's your take on this? What's your
I
observation
think
and what's your choice?
Senior designers can definitely, experiment on these lines because they have the finance, they have the team, a huge team to take care of the bulk orders or, doing collections in volume. Uh, I had an offer from Kimaya, the other store, the twin sisters of store called Karmic, and they wanted me to do a line which was, starting from the price range of 5 to 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we see such kind of offers, it becomes difficult for us to firstly cater in that kind of a volume where we are just establishing ourselves. And just if we are focusing on a value of 5 to 10,000, you have to really get down the whole creativity and think from that point of view that what is going to be cost effective and give you a profit as well. So I think for established designers, it's not very difficult to join these markets and it's, uh, market themselves or sell their product at that price range.
I think it's also following this international trend, like which has been started by H&M about 6 or 7 years ago, where they tie up with big designers. They have with Alexander Wang, they have with Versace, and I think it's a trend that's coming from there because again, H&M is a mass market brand. It's very cheap, it's affordable, and people all over the world buy it. It's stylish, it's mass market. It's made really fast, and I think that's a trend which is coming from
That's what it's coming into Pret. So
yeah.
basically, people are moving on to Pret or fast fashion. So we are slowly losing out on the couture or the high-end pieces.
Yeah.
We
I feel also
want
that
affordable pieces.
I feel couture in India is still considered to be bridal wear. Like you wouldn't consider a couture gown in Paris to be a couture gown in India. Like
Definitely.
the prime focus is still on Indian wear and bridal wear. And I think that's something which needs to sort of change because there's so many people like Janvi and me who studied Western fashion. We may have the cuts and silhouettes in place, but at the end of the day, the market there has to be a market for it.
Yeah.
You know, again, if you want to sell a gown for say 15,000, everybody may not be able to afford it. It may be again occasion driven. So I think that's something which we wish that changes really really fast.
That's why I think the brand comes in. If you see in multi-designer stores, even if it's from some new designer, but it's selling at a multi-designer store, people will buy it because it's there in the market. But they would not experiment someone who is just establishing themselves. They would like to purchase a 15,000 gown, which is uh, not, I don't know if I can say that, but not value for money. But they would not experiment on a new designer. That's what I feel because they want the label to be there. So yeah.
I would agree with you on that because my brand retails at Amara in Mumbai, like our gowns retail there. So yes, definitely multi designer stores really give that edge to a designer, and accessibility of course. And it's I think also a mentality of brands in India, which is very very prevalent.
That's coming from West, I guess. People are more driven to, foreign designers, international designers. Uh,
Yeah.
the slowly, the focus of Indian fashion is again coming back to the Indian roots of it. Nobody wants to experiment Western wear with Indian designers. They feel that international designers are much better at it. So
I
I,
also
I,
feel
I buy that point actually. Uh, I mean, when it comes to wearing a Western wear, why would I want to buy, a new label or or an established label for that matter? Why would I not want to go and buy an accessory from Gucci or Louis Vuitton? So it's that. But when it comes to ethnic, I really want to, place my trust on established ethnic wear brands in India and who are giving me some value for money and a lot of innovation in terms of the design they're offering, the cut, silhouette, etc. So I think that is one trend that is there. I mean, that kind of clarity is coming up in the market. Would you say so? I mean, do you see this kind of segregation happening
no, I feel
among
people
the
are
custom?
more open to upcoming designers now than they were maybe 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that trend is changing. It's slow, but it's changing. People are still, now looking at aesthetics and like Janvi pointed out, price points. Like not everybody can afford to buy an anarkali for 1 lakh of rupees for every occasion. That's where the upcoming designers come in, where their price points are much lower. They're still offering you new cuts and designs. And I think so that trend is definitely changing. But again, like coming back to the bridal market, like people would still want an Abu Jani or a Rohit Bal.
Yeah, because just because they're established designers, they
Yeah,
don't, they don't have the trust in built with new designers because they feel they may fail or they may not have that quality or the finishing. So they don't have that trust which is supposed to be built up for new upcoming designers.
yeah.
Okay.
But I feel
So,
like now things are changing because everybody's on the internet and there's so much exposure. So I feel for us it's far easier than it was 25 years ago when the fashion industry was like new. I feel it's far easier for us today than it was then because accessibility to information is far far better.
But I think people are getting more prone to copying designers. I've seen a lot of my clients, they get pictures of some designer where they want that to be copied. So they kind of relate the new designers in terms that they have no creativity.
Yeah. And I feel like
absolutely,
also that, it's there's this whole industry which is just based on copying designers.
absolutely.
I mean,
And
you have to be able to give someone that chance to prove themselves, and I guess it takes time.
it sure does. It sure does. So, if you had to choose prep on fast fashion over couture, would you guys go for it? Given that couture has its own business limitations.
I think you have to do a bit of both. I
Okay.
mean, fast fashion is really not my cup of tea, to be honest. And I think couture is definitely where you can explore your creativity, and Pret is where you make the money. So it's a balance of both.
I think we have in my store I have Pret and I have Couture, but
Hmm.
there are very high margins, profit margins which you get from Couture or bridal wear,
Definitely.
because you can't have that much profit into a Western garment which probably I'm priced between 5 to 10,000. A customer can definitely buy it from Zara or any other high street brand. Why would they buy it from me, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
exclusive? So
Mm-hmm.
your Indian and bridal kind of sells you and gives you that much amount of profit.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, I would choose something which gives me more profit than making something which is just hung for about 2 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like mass market brands coming into India is of course great because you're totally with trend overseas and like in the globe. But at the same time, for designers, it's a little damaging because they may not want to spend say 5,000 on a top when they can get it for 2,500 at Zara. So that's definitely like a bit of a damaging point for Indian designers.
So, by far, it seems that couture is again a safe bet for the designers as of, I mean,
Not
so
really
still
because
today.
your high-end pieces may not always sell. Again, you have to be
Okay.
an established designer to command that price every single time. Of course, there is that 50% chance that it will, but then there's also that 50% chance that it won't. If I'm
And what
demanding
if you
for a gown, why wouldn't someone buy a Tarul Tehliani instead?
Definitely.
absolutely, and what if you're not an established designer and your top piece does not sell? What do you do? I mean, what's the way out?
I think e-commerce is the way out. I would say because
Absolutely. You
because
start your own e-commerce store.
because it's more sellable because you are marketed worldwide. I think e-commerce is now, not only a country specific, it's more worldwide now, and people across the globe can see your products. And definitely, out of so many people, one person might choose your garment and, it just might sell. So
Yeah.
if we have any dead stock, I think e-commerce is the way to sell a product.
Yeah, and definitely
Sure.
because every market has a different requirement. I remember when I was working in New York for YSL, they had
Mhm.
sort of different collections for each market, for Europe, for America, for Asia. They had variations in their collection. So if it
Mhm.
doesn't sell in India, doesn't mean it's not going to sell in any other part of the world.
Absolutely, and I hope some of the leading Indian e-commerce retailers are listening. So, okay. So now, when it comes to the supply chain in the fashion industry, there are separate roadblocks, separate challenges. How do you face these challenges? What are these challenges, firstly, and then how do you face them?
I think the main criteria is your finance. If you don't have the finance, you really can't do anything. Um, My parents were not from business background. My father is an architect. So creativity was there, but I think he was very hesitant of me starting a business because I did not know B of business basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of uh, set your own uh, whole little dreams that you want to start like this and you want to have your store like that or you want your collection to be like that, but it's in the real world it doesn't happen like this. You have to watch out for your finances before you actually take the plunge in getting to the fashion industry, and you have to keep changing your collection every few months. Otherwise, your customers will say that you have the same collection every time. So there's a lot of input, financial input, which is put into a business, and creativity comes next. Basically, people are not looking for creative things; they're looking for different things, basically, which is you know nicely ranged up.
Yeah, I would agree
And
with
what
you on that. Like every other business, there's an initial investment, and of course, that becomes a limitation for a lot of people. That
is.
they may not be able to afford the initial investment, but they're extremely creative. So that's a definite roadblock that I've noticed around me. Like even when I've interacted with people when I came back, like that's a definite roadblock. They take that time to make their own money and then make that initial investment.
Also, I
So,
think Indian customers are a little hesitant in experimenting with silhouettes. So we really have to think of what they want instead of what we want. So we have to really focus on the client rather than focusing on what style we actually have.
so, but then that's what creativity is about, Janvi. I mean, it's about understanding. If you went, ultimately you are catering to the consumers, and if you have to understand what the consumer wants, because we can't sell everything that sells in Paris or Greece in India. So that customization, that tailor-made designs are meant to be there. I mean, so what's wrong with that?
I think a lot of designers are doing something which is not sellable. Every designer is not doing a collection which sells. It's just I think that's what the mindset of Indian industry is, that everything you make has to sell. So I think creativity is not just only at a point where you sell your product. It's also what kind of talent you have to showcase. So I've done collections which were, I think, not wearable at all, but it was very different style, which I think Indian consumers will not accept. There are a lot of designers in internationally who kind of just do products which are just to mesmerize your eyes, I think.
Yeah. I feel also creativity is a lot about adapting back. I mean, you have to adapt to the Indian sensibilities and Indian silhouettes, and also the Indian body type is very different from what you have overseas. Like
Absolutely.
each country has their own body type,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to design and adapt to the Indian body type. Like in India, everybody wants to look thinner. I think everywhere in the world, but in India, you have to concentrate on the Indian female form and what's going to enhance her and what's going to like look bad on her. So you got to be really careful about that and adapt back here. Like I know, like a lot of people have issues with the net fabric. You know, it's coming out of being conservative because net, means showing skin. So those are certain things that you got to keep in mind that someone in Delhi can also wear it, someone in Patna can also wear it.
I think that's the trend. I think if I see 2 years back, I think net was in its boom. Net saris, net anarkalis, net this, net blouses. So I think even the media plays a very important role. If we see our cinema these days, everything from there is what is there in the store. So if
Yeah, I
something
think Bollywood
is
has huge
yeah,
influence.
Bollywood has a lot of influence on every designer, I think. If that's there and in the market, it has to be with the, designers. So it's about the trend. I think nowadays people don't want to wear net at all. 2 years back down the line, I sold so many saris which were made of net. Now I have dead stock.
So you always have e-commerce there. So, So how attractive is the fashion industry from the investment point of view, from the investor's point of view, and how do you how have you, if I were to ask you, manage your finances? Do you have some support from a funding company? I mean, how, or it's your own capital? How have you started your business and
I
manage the
think I
capital?
was very lucky that my family was supportive of my dreams and they supported this venture through and through.
Hmm.
And definitely from an investor's point of view, you have to tell them that in the first 1 year, it's all an initial investment and you may not regain your profits. But then obviously there's that, that little chance that, okay, if you make it big, then, the investors also gain. And again, coming back to e-commerce and the global market, like, accessibility makes things so much easier.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
as I
believe.
told you. Yeah.
No, go on, Janvi.
So as I told you, even for me, it was a difficult task to convince my parents to get me into business, and I think finance was something which was a major problem for my family because my father was from a service line, and to take the plunge of every monthly salaries or getting new products every now and then was very difficult. And still, I think he feels that it's a very difficult task to handle business for a young girl, especially for girls. I think everyone, I think every parent feels that how will they manage? Will it be okay for them? Will they know how to handle customers or their vendors? So it's a difficult task to start your own label, but once you do, I think you gain the confidence and you really understand what is required. You stop making those many mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. You learn as you go along.
Um, but when it comes to maybe borrowing capital from the PE investors or something, do you think there's a scope there?
I think it's still a very hard task in India because the industry is still growing and gaining that respect. I remember when I had to apply to design school, like my grandparents thought it was a little weird. But I mean, today when I've come back, I see that there's so much respect for the industry, and design is considered a very respectful profession. So I think it's definitely changing. From the investor point of view, I think it's still going to take some time because they have to be able to see profitability, and that also really depends on the price points and your customer base and volumes, of course.
I think investors are looking for more established designers than new designers. They don't want to put in their money on a person who is just a 2-year-old baby in the market. So you really can't think of getting an investor in the starting of the label. You have to really work hard for 3-4 years or probably 5 years to kind of gain that name and fame which you need so that you have investors who invest in you and you could increase your label and your productivity and as well as the uh, availability in the market.
So when it comes to reaching out to the masses as a new designer in the market, there are concepts like Kimaya who are helping a lot of designers in the market. Do you think these concepts would work, and do we require more of such concepts in India?
I
I
think
think
they
definitely.
are actually focused. I think they are focusing on high-end designers, basically. I was just reading an article by the owner of Kimaya, and he has mentioned in his interview that the label Karmic, he's you know um, joined hands with Rohit Bal, Gigi Palaya, etc., etc. So it's basically that's what is selling in the market. Every person, every client wants a brand to be there in their garment, the tag of the designer. So even if a new designer kind of join ventures with these multi-designer stores, they would not retail the garment by our name. They would retail the garment by their own company's name. So we are not getting that much exposure where we are putting so much effort.
No, I would disagree with you on that. Like, even my label is fairly new. I mean, it's been about 9 months, and I've I've retailed through multi-designer stores. I mean, they are fairly open to it, I feel. Maybe not that much that, okay, they'll take up on anything, but if they see your potential, I think they definitely will. They're still skeptical, yes, but I mean, they're fairly open to it now.
Yeah, I'm talking about last year, but I think this year, I have done with another multi-designer store, but certain stores are open to it, but not. I think the high-end multi-designer stores are still a little skeptical about keeping a new designer in their store, and because they have to have a profit margins on everything.
So,
That's there, but
but I
I feel
think,
like Ogan and Aza and everything, they are big. They are the biggest stores, you know. They are definitely on the top,
Yeah.
and they are still very open to picking up new designers. Like, I mean, I know of a few brands which have been picked up by these stores.
Yeah, but I think you have to have that name and fame at least, because don't, if you're not recognized in the market, I think they would not experiment.
in a situation like this, wouldn't it make sense to launch an exclusive online store? Tie up with an e-commerce website, launch your exclusive store. I mean, isn't that an easier way and cost effective in that manner? Just like Moto G just typically tied with Flipkart. I mean, why can't designers tie up exclusively with apparel online apparel retailers and launch themselves?
There are only very few sites who are retailing at that kind of a market where your product starts from 20,000 or 30K or something like that. You have to either design which is in the budget within 10,000 or lower than that. And I think then it becomes a mass production where we are selling at sites which are catering to clientele who are of a budget of 10,000. So it's not every site who is retailing designers at that price range.
But I would say there are definitely a few who are still very open to new designers. I mean, I think e-commerce is still far more open than multi-designer stores, or maybe both of them are equally open. I mean,
And
I've
that is
had
where,
where they've been
yeah,
very welcoming and very encouraging, and they want to work with you.
and that is where all the investors' money is going actually as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I mean, how do you see which is going to be the most preferred channel of retailing for fashion industry? Is it going to be the brick and mortar stores, your standalone label stores, or is it going to be the e-commerce, or is it going to be a combination of all?
I think it's going to be a combination of both. I think Pret is far easier to sell online, but couture is something which people will still want to buy in the brick and mortar stores because, again, you're spending so much money, you want to be able to touch it and make sure you find the right thing. So I think it's going to be a combination of both.
I
What
totally,
is Jan? Yeah.
I totally agree on that because the industry has much far to go, and you can't really sell a high-end piece online. And there are certain sites who are selling it, but I think for as a consumer, I would never buy something which is a lakh or 2 lakh rupees just online and probably just getting the worst piece ever purchased. So I think Pret would be definitely a high, uh, a high boom in the industry for e-commerce. But I think we are still lacking behind for Indian bridal wear.
But
Yeah.
Jani, I came across there's this luxury watch which is launching in India through brick and mortar stores very soon. But they have been present, in a soft manner in India through their social media platforms. And these watches start at 90,000, go up to like 1,25,000 and so. And these watch timepieces have been selling online. That is through their Instagram pages and their official parent website. So I believe this is also going to be, a case study for luxury or high-end fashion. I mean, why can't, I mean, given the fact that real estate costs are so high, it's not easy for you guys to expand, so fast and create a brand name for yourself. So why not think of innovative forms of retailing? I mean, whether it be social media, whether it be kiosks, or whether it be other forms of retail formats.
See,
Internationally, I'm sure it must be happening.
definitely, but you can't really have that kind of a budget to market yourself. Uh, you have to have the finance. If you want to grow, definitely you have to have that much finance to kind of showcase yourself everywhere.
Hmm.
There are certain clients who come up to you and say that, oh, you are selling a product for so much and you are selling it here, at such a exhibition or at such a stage. So, you have to see the criterias and your budget, your finance, everything. Like it's a combination of everything. So, like you said, watch company is started retailing in a social media. They definitely have that much of a marketing power and marketing budget that they could actually put it on social media, and they would get that much of feedback from the consumers. But for an industry like fashion, I think people are still wanting to go to the stores and purchase it.
What's Urvika's take on this?
I'll stick to my point. I feel like people are going to still buy Pret online and couture in the brick and mortar stores. I mean, we may reach that point where, of course, if it's an established designer, you trust the quality, you trust what you see, people will even pick up couture pieces online.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah,
think
Absolutely.
it's a lot about how much the consumer trusts your product.
yeah, if you're pretty good in the market, you're known in the market, or you're a trusted designer, yes, definitely. Like we spoke about Ponia's pop-up shop. Every designer sells there because it's the Ponia's pop-up shop. But if some other site opens up and probably a new site comes up and they're showcasing designers from like all of us who are a part of the Gurgaon Fashion Week, I think it will take time for them to kind of trust the new designers as far as the sales are concerned.
Sure. So, what kind of role is Gurgaon Fashion Week playing in that situation, in this scenario? Do you think it's going to be a promising event for you guys? What kind of turnover are you expecting? What kind of you know feedback are you expecting from the audiences there?
Well, I definitely feel it's like a stepping stone. It's like the next step.
Mhm.
And then, of course, when you want to do wills or something, it's definitely a feather in your cap, and you have that experience because wills is for the bigger designers and more established designers.
Mhm.
And they have certain criteria. You should have worked in the industry for a certain amount of time. Now, for
Mhm.
someone like me, I've already worked in the industry for a year and a half overseas, and I knew when
Yeah,
I came back I was ready. For me, Gurgaon is one way of showing my talent to the world. So I
absolutely.
feel it's definitely a great opportunity, and especially for upcoming designers, it's a definite, to do.
I think
What's Jan?
see,
Yeah.
Delhi all from last so many years is you know seeing this and Lakme Fashion Week every year, twice or thrice. So I think Gurgaon is still new to the Fashion Week scenario. Uh, it's definitely becoming a city where we are getting a lot of people who are becoming rich and rich every day. So the
Yeah.
spending power is getting a lot in Gurgaon also because it was never considered a market for fashion, basically. If someone wants to shop, they have to come to Delhi. So I think it's going to be a great turnout at Gurgaon Fashion Week because a lot of people who are spenders who want to experiment with new designers will definitely come by there. And
Yeah.
it's a booming city. I think everything is changing in Gurgaon. I stay in Gurgaon. I've seen from last 5 years. It's such a huge change. You can't really recognize your own place. So fashion labels have opened up, big labels, big names, big be it car manufacturers. Everything is there now in Gurgaon.
Yeah,
So
I would agree with you. Like the corporate world is there. So that's where like India is making the money. That's where the multinationals are.
so
So I think it's
I
definitely great for on the economic front.
I'm sure that it's going to turn out big because a lot of people have been waiting for Gurgaon Fashion Week. A lot of my friends who I have known, they've always wanted something or the other, to happen in Gurgaon, which kind of turns over from the global point of view because Delhi was always considered as a fashion hub, and it is still. But
It
we're
is.
hoping that this will kind of change the outcome.
So, and I'm sure not just the Delhi NCR designers who are participating here. I'm sure it's going to grow in scale and it's going to help the fashion industry in general to grow, I guess. I mean, and to help your fashion entrepreneurs like you guys to showcase yourself as well. So you guys plan to be there at the Wills Lifestyle or the bigger fashion weeks as well,
I hope
upcoming
so.
fashion weeks?
Yeah, I mean we all wish so.
Sure. Okay, now both of you have studied abroad, so I'm sure you have some observations on how international fashion is and how Indian fashion is. So, what are the trends that are, merging? What are the international trends that are coming into India?
I feel
That
as
you have
in
it.
terms of cuts and silhouettes, we are
Yeah.
almost there. We
Yeah.
may be a little conservative, but we're almost there. Colors, I think we're totally on trend.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that mindset of always having embellished clothing is also changing. People
Mm-hmm.
are respecting cuts and quality. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel that way, yes, we are getting there. And I think in terms of a global point of view, I think like cuts and technology overseas is still better. So I think that's something where we need to really catch up on. And I think also organization of the industry in general is like
Now,
really come up in the last few years. Like I remember it maybe 5 or 7 years ago, and today it's like really wow. And they're very much adept with social media and how to market it. So I think they've done a really good job.
yeah. So now, when it comes to the sourcing of raw materials, there are their own challenges. The textile industry in India. How do you manage your supply chain? Do you have Indian suppliers? How do you go about it?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
do
for me,
have
I
my
have
own.
Indian suppliers and suppliers overseas.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a balance of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've always been fascinated with brocade since I started this label. I have people who are doing, brocade fabrics for me from Benares, and it comes all the way from Benares for me. I am kind of experimenting on different Indian textiles. As far as the other fabric goes, I think locally buying these fabric is much better because I have gone through buying materials abroad, and I think it did not work out for me. Probably just because I was a starter or a beginner. I don't know about it, but I think it's better that you have, since it's available everywhere in the market these days, it's better to purchase it locally, I think.
Are you guys satisfied with the level of innovation that is happening back in the supply chain in terms of better textiles, better raw materials, weaving, etc.,
Yeah,
etc.?
Definitely.
definitely, because I think most of the textiles come from India, even the ones which are sent overseas, they come from India or China. So I think if you just like look around a little, like there's definitely that availability, no
I think
doubt.
it's just India and China who's providing all the textiles to the world.
I
Absolutely.
mean, France still does a little bit. I mean, expensive, but they still do it. And so does Japan. Like Japanese denim is still the most superior denim in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So, uh, so I'm moving on to my last question. I'm sure I've exhausted you guys a lot with my round of. Anyways, so what trends do you see over the next year emerging in the Indian fashion industry?
I remember reading and studying about these trends for spring summer 2014. That it would be like a colorful fantasy, like a candy land with light and happy colors, very structured clothing, simple cuts, and basically a lot of emphasis on cuts and body shapes. So I think that's
And
definitely a trend that's coming up.
what in terms of the colors, colors
Uh,
of
I
colors of
think we
prints, etc.
Indians love colors. I think we would never go into a phase where we are just, stuck to monochromatic color palette. I
Yeah.
think people want to experiment with different colors. They want colors in their wardrobe, and I think that's where we are best at. We should not get into a mode where we are just sticking to a color palette and which is pastels or something. I think we are known for it worldwide, so why not?
yeah,
Sure.
definitely. Indian colors are loved all over the world.
What are your respective business plans for this year in terms of store expansion and in terms of your business in general? Your
For me, at least,
brand.
I think I will be getting into the e-commerce section as well
Okay.
as multi-designer stores. Also
Okay.
doing some of the big exhibitions like Bridal Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and also a lot of concentration on my marketing and social media because
Okay.
that's one way how you get your word out.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
Johnny,
think
what about
for
you?
me, marketing and social media would be the priority right now because since we will be just freshly out of Gurgaon Fashion Week, I think it's the right point to hit the market right now because once you're, forgotten, you really can't get back into the same spot. So I think that would be my main priority to get into the e-commerce and sell the products more online and get the consumers to know about the brand more.
Sure. And I'm wishing you luck to both of you guys and all the
Thank you.
success. Awaiting at the GFW
Thank
and
you
in
so
the
much.
future ahead.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
a
you.
Thank you.
pleasure speaking to you guys and a lot of insights from you from this discussion. And we look forward to touching base again on a hangout like this.
Surely.
Definitely.
And
It was great. Thank you so much.
I
Thank you,
would
Baba.
beg, thank you, Janvi, thank you, Rebecca. And I would
Thank
beg for
you.
apologies from the audiences for the major technical issues, and the rest of the designers could not join in for the same reason. But we look forward to getting in touch again on a similar hangout, but without any technical haggles. See you around. Bye.
Thank you, Bhavya. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Take care.
Bye.